What's up, YouTube? Hope everyone's having a great day today. Welcome to Gods Unchained Market Watch. I'm your host, Juju, and today we're going to go over all of the notable market movements in the Gods Unchained Marketplace from last week onto this weekend. So, some interesting stuff happened this weekend. First, market is down. Am I surprised? No, because the crypto market is down, and obviously when Ethereum falls, the market falls. It's completely fine. It's completely normal. If you're familiar with the crypto market, we're used to seeing these kinds of fluctuations, right? So nothing to see here. Patch notes were kind of announced, not really finalized, but one of the devs on the Gods Unchained Discords decided to post the balance changes. So we did see a couple of market movements with divine order cards. You'll see this in the review. But yeah, shall we get started? So first up, I want to talk about the rare chests, the Genesis rare chest. So over the past week, someone bought out the rare chest at $271 and then priced them at $2,000. That was crazy. Eventually, it got bought. A copy got bought at $829, which I'm gonna be real, not very smart. Whoever bought this $829. If you look at the expected value of a Genesis rare chest, you're looking at 4 commons and then 1 rare. And if you get better than a rare, you get an epic. And if you get better than an epic, you get a legendary, right? Now, there's 60 legendaries in Gods Unchained. Only one of them is worth more than $800, right? And that's Jason. Same with Demogorgon, right? There's only one epic in the set that's worth more than this. So if you're hoping to pull like something amazing out of this and get your money back for $800, I don't think it's worth. There is a way to calculate expected value for packs. I hope to do a video on that soon. But anyways, I feel sorry for this guy, whoever bought it. I also feel sorry for the person that bought these at $271 because I don't feel like these prices are going to stick anytime soon. But hey, I could be wrong. I'm not psychic. So, but yeah, please don't be this person. Don't buy Genesis rare chests for $800. Spend your money something else. Buy a Demogorgon or something. Buy a Jason. Just not a Genesis rare chest. Buy a legendary rare chest. Legendary rare chests are only $400 more, but you get 6 legendaries. And I believe the average cost of a legendary is somewhere between like $300 to $200. Not including Jason because that's an outlier, of course. So yeah. If you're going to buy anything, buy the legendary Genesis chest because you'll get more bang for your buck. Or even Trial of the Gods legendary chest. That thing is so much value. Anyways, that's all I'm trying to say. If you're out there, if you're watching this video, just be smart with your purchases and don't chase the money because sometimes when you get caught chasing the money, you'll end up losing a ton to the market. So yeah, that's my rant. End of rant. We're going to move on to death cards. All right. I'm going to start off with Apocalypse now because this card is probably one of the key cards in the best decks of the game. It went all the way down from $779 to $371. The cheapest is not $0. Don't look at that. But yeah, it's pretty cheap right now. If you're looking to get into a board wipe death deck, perfect time to buy, in my opinion. Not financial advice, but just know this card is really good. Probably one of the best cards in the game. Sulfuric Rain had a big spike leading up to this week and eventually tapered down to 121 after the dip. However, we do see a little bit of resistance here at the 140 mark. So I think that we've hit a bottom in terms of Sulfuric Rain price. If you're looking to buy, this is the time. Next up, we have Faustian Pact. Good old Faustian Pact. We see a $31 price point here on January 19th. Went all the way down to $17 on January 24th. You know how I feel about this card. I think this card can be really good. I still think this card is really good. 9 cards, kind of serving as a finisher in terms of if you play this in an aggro deck, play this card to draw maybe a key burn card or maybe a key aggro card. Pretty good in my opinion. This is just gets even better when partnered with Necronomics for like insane tempo swings. But yeah, great card overall. We do see a dip, which is unfortunate, but that's what happens when Ethereum price goes down. Next up, we have Return to the Cave. This is your 1 mana, add 2 mana locks, heal your god for 10. So I actually like this card. It was bought out 65 copies at $17.54. The reason why I like this card is Burst Heal is becoming a lot more of a luxury at this point, with Just a Nibble getting nerfed to 5 health instead of 7 health. The downside is you do have to add 2 mana locks, but late game you don't really care too much, especially if you're at 8 mana or so. Anything past 7 mana, if you play this in board wipe death, could be good. I mean, it could also be used in a pinch during like your early turns, but man, it's such a detriment if you use it in your early turns. It essentially puts you two turns behind, which could be a problem. So I do understand the buyout, but I'm also kind of about it. Just something to take note. Necronomics. So Necronomics went up in price, which is pretty great in my opinion. I think it's well deserved. This card has been under the radar for a while. It's a 1 mana, deal 5 damage to your god and give 4 mana back. So you're essentially gaining 4 mana. Couple of implications for this card. It combos well with Corpse Explosion. There's an OTK with this card. It's just overall a pretty darn good card, especially if you want to run like a tempo death deck or maybe an OTK death deck. It spiked all the way to $16, $17, got brought back down to 14, 13 range. I don't see it going back down anytime soon unless there's another dip, or if Corpse Explosion gets nerfed, we could see this card go back down. But for the most part, we have hit a bottom. We have hit a new floor. So that's interesting. Next up, we have Triage Necromancer. This is a 5 mana at the end of your turn. Summon a random 1 mana creature from your void. 5 mana, 5/5, a Nubian. We did see a price spike over here, went to $10, but now it's back down to $7.20. Card is pretty decent in my opinion. Seems to me like this would feel natural to play in a like aggro zoo type death deck that has a lot of 1-drops, maybe powerful 1-drops like Writhing Spirit or Siren of the Grave. I could totally see this card seeing play in those kinds of decks. Not a bad card, and the one thing I like about it, it's that you proc it at the end of your turn, so you're always going to proc this card no matter what. It might as well just say 5 mana, 5/5, summon a 1 mana creature from your void at least once. So not bad. Cruel Overseer did see a spike before the dip. This is your 3 mana, 3/4 another. At the end of your turn, if your god has 15 health or less, summon 2 1/1 Implings. I think this card is pretty good. You get a lot of value, especially if you're below 15 health. And if you're not below 15 health, you still get value because it's 3 mana, 3/4. I think it's a decent card, and I've actually seen it in a couple of decks that have gone 24 out of 25 in Mythic. So not a bad card. Also pairs very well with like Demonic Offering, those types of cards. Also partners well with Necronomics too, because Necronomics does damage to your god and it could help you proc this. Cool. Okay, now we have Sarcophagus. This is your 2 mana, 0/6 Anubian, cannot attack. Burn 2, Afterlife, summon another random Anubian from your void. This card has seen a buyout lately. So this is my gripe with this card. At 2 mana, you don't want to play this card at 2 mana. I don't think so, because it's too early of the game for you to dump your void with powerful Anubians, and that's kind of what you want. And it's a burn 2, cannot attack, which means you have to wait 3 turns for it to proc its effect. Honestly, it could see play. I think it has a lot of potential, but there are just a lot of things going for it right now that just scream to me it's too slow. Like you play it on turn 2, you wait about two additional turns, so turn 4, and then you have to dump cards into your grave. You can use cards like Corrupt Offering or that Ghoul, the 1 mana 2/2 that dumps a card from your grave, or maybe even the 2 mana 4/3 from Core Set that deals damage to your god but dumps 1 card from your deck to your void. Could see play, especially in a deck that would dump really overpowered Nubians to your grave early, but you need to get creative with this card for sure. Next up, we have Plague Talisman. Oh, time to bust out the patch notes. So yeah, game developer for Gods Unchained released some balance updates for this week on the Gods Unchained Discord. If you haven't joined the Discord already, you should probably do so. It's a pretty good resource to get connection to the game developers. But so Plague Talisman, after you damage a creature with this relic, if the creature survives, transform it into a 1/1 zombie. It gets changed into Umbral Plague. Give a creature at the end of your turn, deal 2 damage to both gods, then give minus durability to this relic. So it's essentially giving a creature soul burn, which isn't. I don't think it's like crazy overpowered. I don't think it's overpowered, but if you can find a way to give that effect to multiple minions and have those minions stay alive over the course of your turn or over the course of the game, that could be possibly very powerful in terms of burn. Plague Talisman could, like, you can find situations where maybe you're playing against an opponent that doesn't really summon threatening monsters, and keep 1 monster on the field, proc this card's effect multiple times, give it to that monster or give it to another monster, maybe your monster, and then just keep the monsters alive, possibly proc sleep effects to maybe stall out the game. Like that has some meme potential for sure. Definitely interesting buyout for sure. Okay, next up we have deception cards. So first up we have Scylla, Carnival Ringleader. This is a 4 mana 3/3 dragon. Order 3, when this creature loses order, transform it into a 5/5 Shimmer Scales and give +5 burn to each other creature. We do see a spike go from $5.95 to $11, all the way back down to $7. Scylla's an interesting card. The problem that I have with creatures like this, where they proc their effect when they lose order, is there's no immediate impact on board unless you have the Changing Locks or maybe Prisoner Exchange card. Yeah, there's no immediate. You just play this on board. It has order, and then you have to wait 3 turns before it procs. Not only that, it procs on your opponent's turn. 3/3 is pretty weak for a 4 mana card, in my opinion, because it's vulnerable to 2 mana cards and even some 1 mana cards. Yeah, even though it can't be attacked because it's protected by order, there are plenty of spells that can deal with this card. Next up we have Counterfeit. Okay, so this is another card that got reworked. It changed from, if your opponent has a relic equipped and you don't, equip a copy of your opponent's relic, otherwise draw a card, into, let me pull it up. It's basically, if your opponent has a relic equipped and you don't, destroy it and equip a copy of it, otherwise draw a card. So it turns into relic removal, which could be very useful for Deception class. Not only that, it's a +1 in card advantage, because you're using this card to destroy your opponent's relic, but then you're gaining a relic, and it could possibly lead into more card advantage, because if you copy something like a magic missile launcher or even just a relic at full charge, you can do a lot of damage with this. I could definitely see this card being teched in deception decks for sure. Very strong buff in my opinion. Next up we have Ring of the Siren. Okay, so this card got reworked. I'm actually sad this card got reworked because I like the original effect. It's a 3 mana 0/4 relic. Ability, give a creature order 1 and give -1 durability to this relic. Instead of it giving order 1 in the rework, it gives order 2. I think order 2 is a very strong number for order in particular because it allows you to stall your opponent and then still act on your turn. So if you play this card, give order 2 to your opponent's creature, first turn of order is their turn, and the second turn of order, when order is released, is your turn. So that can have some positive implications. The reason why I liked order 1 is because it makes your order cards a lot more powerful, especially when they don't have order, right? So you can play this on the hollow, give it order 1, and then on your opponent's turn, the hollows affect procs and you get a minion or whatever. Same thing with Lantern Bound Fae or even Scylla. Being able to do, not Scylla actually because it transforms into a dragon, but being able to immediately proc your minions is a very strong effect. So I think with this card being moved to 2, it might make it a little weaker, but we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of room for improvement with order decks and a lot of more room for experimentation. I really don't think order lists are like optimized. It's a hard class to optimize though because order is just a weird mechanic, especially when you want to use it offensively. It's better as a defensive mechanic, honestly. But we did see a buyout here, which is interesting. Cool. Next up, we have Stolen Plans. This is your 1 mana spell. Target an opponent. Delve a card belonging to that god's domain. Yeah, we did see a buyout here. 75 copies bought at 80 cents. All the way over. I think this card is okay. It's basically replaces itself. It's good that you get to delve a card from your opponent's god's domain. That's okay in my opinion. It's just not a game-breaking card, so I'm not sure why there's a buyout here. Next up, we have Helm Hustler. This is your 3 mana 2/4 with backline. This creature takes 1 armor from an enemy creature, then deals this creature's armor as damage to it. I think this card is more often not like overvalued. I don't understand why there's a value, or I don't understand why there was a buyout here or a price spike here, but maybe with the buff to Phalanx, the 5 mana 4/1 with 2 armor, maybe, you know, this was a preemptive buyout because this is anti-armor tech. So we could see something happen here, but honestly, I don't think the card's very strong in my opinion. It can't even attack. It's an ability card, so yeah, I don't know. It's definitely seems like garbage. Okay, next up we have Twisting Talisman. Okay, so this one is the 1 mana 1/3 flank. After you attack a creature with this relic, if the creature survives, swap the creature's strength and health. Instead of it being an attack, it turns into an ability now, which is a buff in my opinion because you don't need to attack anymore. It doesn't serve as a condition. I don't know if this card is still worth playing though, but maybe in some metagames it could serve as a tech card. It also unlimits this effect to just your opponent's creatures. Now you can use this effect on your creatures, so that could possibly have some implications. You definitely have to test it out, but there's a buyout that happened here. Next up, we have our light cards. So I just wanted to point out that Rat of Healing was bought at $525 at an average of 2 copies. Or 2 copies were bought at an average of $525. Current price right now is $755.27 when all the other rats are at the 1,000 mark for sure. This could mean something for people who are collecting rats. I don't know. Only time will tell, but it's either this price will go up or the other rats will go down, and that's a very interesting thing to take note of, especially if you're into collecting these cards. Okay, next up we have Therial's Anvil. This is a 9 mana 4/6 structure. Backline ward can attack at the end of each turn, summon a 4/7 Divine Chains. I mean, if you can summon this card's pretty good. I just don't like how it's a 9 mana card. It's also kind of vulnerable in a sense where ward can be popped by like magic cards and then it can get like sapped by an epiphany or something like that. But it's a pretty strong card if you can get its effect off. I mean, it procs its effect always at the end of each turn. So if you summon this card, you're always going to get a 4/7 Divine Chain. Very good late game card in my opinion if you can get it off. The only problem is, of course, getting to late game, especially in this meta. But you never know. I think this card has a lot of potential, and it could be busted, especially if you get the effect off. Next up, we have Lysander's Mercy. This is your 7 mana pull each creature on the board onto the bottom of their controller's deck. This card is a board wipe, essentially. It sets you up for situations where you lose fatigue, so you'd probably want to play this this is more of a tech against or if you play this against aggro, you're probably not going to want to go to fatigue, but for the most part, I think this card can serve as useful. The only downside is it's 7 mana, so you have to wait 8 to 9 turns to play. Cool, Divine Judgment. Obliterate a creature with order. I knew this card was good. It's really efficient removal, especially in order decks. It's 1 mana. Basically kill a creature and not activate their afterlife. And that's very valuable. We see a price jump from 124 to 220. Very good card in my opinion. We should see more of this in the future. Helios Justicar is your 5 mana 4/5. At the start of each turn, give order 1 to a random enemy creature. This card did see a buyout. I think Copper Pitch released an order deck recently, and we did see a price spike within the order cards, so that goes to show how much of an influence he has on the market. 5 mana 4/5 for stats is very underwhelming. 1 order is kind of underwhelming. You're only stalling for 1 turn really, but it can soft lock some boards, which is valuable. I think this card has a lot of potential, especially in order decks. It's probably a must include of. The only problem is I don't know if order decks are very powerful. They can be powerful, and if you get that 6 mana card that gets 1/1 for every point of order that's on the field, you can get some pretty insane big minions. But for the most part, I don't know if the deck can compete with the top contenders in the meta, but only time will tell. Radiant Guardian. So this is your 7 mana 5/7 frontline. Roar, set an enemy creature's health to 2. It's an Aether as well, so that serves some kind of merit. We do see a steady increase in price. I don't know if I like this card. I mean, I think it could serve as a great way. It's a card you'd want to play when you already have a minion on board, so that you can have that minion trade with whatever you targeted with. But it's just so slow in my opinion. 7 mana means you have to wait 9 turns, and 5/7 is a pretty underwhelming stat line. Next up, we have Tartesian Sentry. This is a 4 mana 3/3 Olympian. At the end of your turn, give 1/1 to this creature if it hasn't attacked since entering the board. Roar, give 1/1 and ward to the Chosen One. More Chosen One support. This is pretty interesting 4 mana 3/3 in my opinion, because technically it's a 4 mana 4/4. In terms of you summon it, it can't attack anyways, so it gets the buff. So I don't know if I like it though, because it encourages inactivity on board, and in a game like Gods Unchained, you want activity on board, especially if you're a tempo deck. So maybe there's some implications in the future if a card comes out that gives taunt to another minion. I could definitely see that coming into effect, but for now, or maybe there's a light card. There's a light card that gives frontline already, but yeah, that's how I see it being effective. You play this card and you give it frontline, and then you just let it sit there until your opponent deals with it. Next up, we have Animated Armory. Backline, can attack, armor 1. After you summon an Olympian or a mystic creature, raise its armor to 1. It's a 2/5 structure. I think this card has some synergy implications, especially if you're running an Olympian deck. Most Most zoo lights will run Olympians and Mystics, so this can be okay in my opinion. I mean, and the fact that it has armor 1 means it's not very easy to kill, especially if you. It also has backline, so it'll be very hard to reach, especially if you play it in a deck with a lot of minions like Zoo Light. I could see it being splashed in there, but I don't know if it's like a must include. Ah, yes. 6 mana, 2/2, Archpriest of Parthene. This is the order card I was talking about. Roar, give order 3 to an enemy creature, then give 1/1 to this creature for each point of order on the board. This card can get insanely big. You can combo this card with Writ of Law or the 3 mana 3/3 dog, and basically any of the order cards, really. It has a lot of. It can get very big. Pretty much, if you, one Writ of Law makes this card what? That's 8 plus 3 plus 2. That's 13. It's a 13/13 on turn 6. That can be pretty crazy. The only implication, if your opponent knows that you're playing Order, they're going to have to know that they have to deal with this card eventually, right? So the whole entire game, they're going to be playing around it by either trying to eliminate cards with order, or maybe even saving their hard removal for that Archpriest. Like, I played this deck once in Mythic with Board Wipe Death, and I drew Reap, and I was like, sick, I'm good. Because I can, once he plays that card, I can just play Reap and we're good, you know? Or if my opponent got to an insane amount of order on a particular turn, I just played Apocalypse Now and cleared the board so he didn't have order. It's a very easy to play around card, in my opinion, but if your opponent isn't prepared, it will catch them off guard, so this deck does have meme potential in that regard. Cool. Next up, we have Glaring Talisman. Okay, so this card's buff slash no, it's a buff, and it's a little bit of, it's weird. It's the same effect, but replace after your god attacks with, if your god gets attacked, give that creature order. So it can be good, especially in turns setting up that Archpriest. Like the turn before you want to play your Archpriest, play this Glaring Talisman and just dare your opponent to attack. That's pretty much the extent, though. But honestly, I kind of liked this card because it's a 4 mana, 3 damage, but it had 3 durability, so you can just attack 3 times, and you didn't even have to attack minions. It's basically 4 damage or 9 damage for 4 mana, which was pretty interesting in my opinion. I feel like it's a nerf, but it makes this, instead of making it proactive, it makes this card reactive, which is interesting. Cool. So next up we have Avatar of Magic, our magic cards. For that, I'm just going to go ahead and get a big sip of water. We're doing a lot of talking today. So Avatar of Magic did see a buyout happen at 283, 29 copies were bought. Holy bejeebus. 9 mana, 9/9, protected ward, spell boost +2. Whenever you cast a spell, add a copy of Beam to your hand that costs 1 mana. This card is a win condition on its own. Play this card in Control Nature, Control Magic, Ramp Magic, any Magic deck that can reliably get to this late game. Yeah, this card is pretty busted and it wins games on its own. Protected Ward is such a great combination, and the fact that it's a 9/9 means it's got a big booty. Yeah, and then it gives you beams and it has spell boost. So you play a beam, it gives you another beam, so you can just basically, and you're going to be at 9 mana. So you play this card, whatever, it lives, you attack your opponent for 9, and then from there you play a spell, get a beam, and however much mana you have left, you play all of your beams, and it deals a ton of damage. So pretty good card in my opinion. Late game win condition for Magic. Ah, yes. Next up, we have Guardian of the Gates. So this is your 3 mana 1/1 roar. Unlock a mana lock. Give ward to your god. I'm actually kind of sad this card has seen more activity lately because I wanted to buy it. But anyways, it was at 123. Today it was at 140, but the cheapest you can find it at now is 193.67. That's wild in my opinion. It's such a big price jump for a card that hasn't seen play in the meta, but I do think this card will see play in the meta soon because of the implications, the buff to ramp magic. But overall, this card is a good buy. Speaking of ramp magic, we have Crystal Watcher, which had a spike. Order 10, unlock a mana lock, and deal 1 damage to this creature. It's 2/3, but you don't really care about the 2/3, really. This card is good at 4 mana, and it basically gets buffed down to 3 mana. Holy crap. You play this card on 3 mana, your opponent doesn't have an answer for it. They're essentially letting you ramp 2 turns ahead, 3 turns ahead. This is great. I would play this card in a ramp deck, and if my opponent didn't have an answer to it, I would easily get from 4 mana to 6, like no problem. The only downside of this card is that it's at 3 health, so it gets easier to deal with as you use this effect. So be careful when you play this card, but overall, getting this card at 3 mana is a steal. So yeah, we do see a price spike here, and this is probably going to be the new floor. 24 cents. Ooh, 24 cents. Cool, next up we have Lightning Talisman. Okay, so this card, after your god attacks a creature with this relic, give that creature at the end of your turn, deal 2 damage to a random friendly character. This is a 3 mana 1/3. Gets a buff, in my opinion. It becomes a 1/3 to a 0/3, and it changes its text to, after your god is damaged, deal 2 damage to the strongest enemy creature, then 1 damage to the weakest enemy creature, and give -1 durability to this relic. So your god gets damaged, you deal 2 damage to a strong creature, deal 1 damage to a weak creature. This card doesn't seem very strong, but I have a feeling it can be, because the god power, the magic god power that deals 1 to anyone is definitely a thing. So you can have this relic, and then you can play your god power, use it on yourself to deal 3 damage worth of damage. 2 mana worth of damage, pretty much. That could be an interesting interaction. There are probably way more interactions, but this card is definitely something to keep an eye on. I don't know if it's game breaking though. I don't think it is, but because it's a relic, we can't really discount relic effects, because relics are continuous. They stay on the board, and they serve as kind of like a very good source of card resources, in my opinion. So we will have to keep an eye on this for now, but it doesn't seem game breaking, but it could be. Maybe. I don't know. Get creative with it. Someone else will find out for me. Cool. Next up, we have All Seeing Spire. So this one didn't get a buff, actually, but we did see a spike from 18 cents to 56. Order 10 at the start of your turn for C1. At the end of your turn, draw a card. So this card will automatically draw you a card because it procs at the end of the turn, and if it stays longer, then great. So it automatically replaces itself. The fact that it is ordered means your opponent can't attack into it until it runs out of order, which is 5 turns later. Card is pretty good in my opinion, especially if you're playing a deck that wants to cycle through its cards fast. Yeah, it's very good. I've used it in a couple of my Magic ramp decks, and I think this card is definitely a very strong card, especially at the 3 mana slot for Magic. And that's saying something, because the other card that's at the 3 mana slot is Oni Spellsword. Okay, next up we have Tome Golem. This is an interesting buyout. 32 copies were bought at 33 cents. It's an 8 mana 8/8 roar, draw 4 cards. I don't understand why you'd buy out core cards, but maybe there's some arbitrage that's happening here. It's an Atlantean, so it gets access to Atlantean support. I just don't like how it's 8 mana. You're waiting 12 turns to play this card to draw 4 cards. Like, what? Yeah, I don't know. That's just me, though. Whoever bought this out, all the power to you. Next up, we have Safeguard Incantation. This card also got reworked. So instead of it being 2 mana, draw a card, give ward to each creature in your hand, it is now draw a card. Nope. Draw a card. Yeah, it is. Draw a card, give ward, and protect it to your god. This card kind of reminds me of Ice Block in a way. And from Hearthstone. Sorry, I'm referring to a card in Hearthstone. But it's a stall card. You play this against a board with 1 minion, and that 1 minion's attack is nullified, and you get to cycle. So it replaces itself. I think in stall decks, this card can be really good. Yeah, definitely. For sure. We do see a price spike here, 11 cents all the way to 27. It's now at the bottom. I think the fact that those balance changes were announced, everyone started like hopping onto the investment train. But I actually think this is one of the better like reworks. Next up, we have Enchanted Chariot. This card also got reworked, hence the price buff. Instead of it being a 1 mana 2/1, it is now a 4 mana 3/3, and instead of it being roar, deal 1 damage to an enemy creature, it's roar, draw a structure from your deck. That has some implications for sure. Structures decks are going to get buffed, and this card could be a very valuable card. 4 mana 3/3 is a little underwhelming though. If I'm playing a card at 4 mana, I'd want a little bit more stats. But maybe if you get to search like a special relic like a Monolith of Storms, I could see this being a thing. It's just a little slow. Like, I'd rather have it be a 1 mana 2/2 or a 2/1 that searches out another structure than a 4 mana, because these kinds of tutor effects are better early game. Ghost Form. I actually like this change too. So change text, picked 1, give order to +10 to a creature in your hand, or draw a card, and it gets changed to give order +2 to a creature and draw a card. So order 2 is even number order effects are really good because you can play it on your opponent's turn, and your opponent won't be able to do anything or interact with that card unless they play a spell, and then the order comes off at your turn, so you're free to do whatever you want with that creature, right? So you can play it on your minion or their minion, and your opponent won't have an answer for it unless they do something about it by expending resources. So it does seem pretty good. It also replaces itself now automatically. So yeah, you play this card, put order to a creature to either stall or protect it, and then you draw a card, which means it's additional cycle for your deck. Man, I hope that there's an OTK Magic deck out there somewhere, because this card and Safeguard Incantation are definitely going to be key cards for that kind of archetype. All right. So next up, we have our nature cards. Gloam Druid is interesting because there wasn't a buyout, but it's stayed pretty consistent despite the dip that's happening on with Ethereum. So that's an interesting topic. I think Gloam Druid is pretty good. You don't want to play this on turn 2 though. You want to play this probably turn 6-7 as a finisher, especially for running a wild deck. But that's just me. Next up, we have Underbrush Boar. We did see a spike here. We see 145 all the way to 157 to 174. Now it's all the way back down to 125, and the cheapest copy you can find is 132. I think this card is good. Let's be real. 2 mana 3/3, awesome. You're already summoning using Jaguar in nature decks, but the fact that it gets to attack at the end of your turn and provide immediate impact on board is also very big. I don't really care about the confused tag because the stats are really good, and if you're playing this early enough, the confused tag doesn't really matter. So yeah, very good card in my opinion. Okay, next up we have General Orithia. It spiked back up to its previous high at $14. I think this card can be good for Amazons. I just don't like how it's 7 mana and you have to wait. Also, yeah, I don't know. But in return, it's a 7 mana 5/5 that lets you summon 2 Amazon recruits and it gives those Amazons buffs, right? So it's a 5/5 and 2 3/3s, so that's what, 11 worth of stats. That's pretty decent. And it could be more. There's upside to it because those Amazons get Twin Strike and you can have more Amazons on board when you play this card. But if you have more Amazons on board when you play this card, you're probably winning at this point in the game. Like, I feel like Amazon decks are more aggro, so yeah. If you're playing this on turn 9, you should be winning. Cool. Next up we have Gorilla Gardener. This is an 8 mana 8/8 wild. Backline, Blitz, Overkill. That's a combination. After this creature destroys an enemy creature, summon a 1/1 Vibrant Fruit. So if this procs multiple times because of its Overkill effect, that could be pretty amazing. I haven't really played this card, so I don't know how that interaction works. But if it procs a Vibrant Fruit, God, that's hard to say. A Vibrant Fruit for each time it destroys a creature every time it attacks. It's pretty nuts. It's 8 mana 8/8 though, and it feels very slow. I feel like I would just play this card in a control deck or a deck that would reliably get to 8 mana. But most most nature decks are more on the aggressive side, so I don't know. Maybe you play this in a deck where you expect a slower game, so it does have implications though. This is a big booty and this is definitely a big threat because of Blitz, Overkill, and the fact that Backline synergizes with the fact that it summons Vibrant Fruits. So they have to go through the Vibrant Fruit before they get to the Gorilla, and that could be a problem. Very interesting card. I do think it's strong if you can get to 8 mana. Shrine of Sothek. This is a 3 mana 0/2 structure. At the end of your turn, add a random nature card to your hand. Doesn't really do it for me, to be honest. Yeah, it procs at the end of your turn, so it's going to replace itself, right? But, man, that is such a loss of tempo playing this at 3 mana. I don't like it. But we do see a buyout here. Went from $3 to $6. Now it's back down to $5. 27 copies were bought at an average price of $4.35. I think this card is not really good, in my opinion. Cool. Next up, we have Spelljam Shaman. This is a 4 mana 2/3. After your opponent plays a spell, add a random nature card to your hand. 4 mana 2/3 is very weak of the stats, and you proc the effect based on your opponent. Your opponent has control when you deal with that, so maybe you just destroy this card by attacking into a minion that your opponent already has and then play a spell instead of play a spell. Best case scenario, your opponent plays a spell, destroys a card, and you get a card. But worst case scenario, you summon this card, and on your opponent's turn, they attack into it, and you don't even get the effect, and you wasted 4 mana. So I don't think this is a good card, not really. Blazing Talisman. Okay, so this card also got a rework. All of the Talisman got reworked. The new effect is after an enemy creature attacks your god, give it burn +1. When a creature with burn dies, give your creature +1 regen. This could be an interesting effect because it doesn't lose durability when it procs its effect. And when a creature with burn dies, so it means it doesn't just mean your opponent's creature, it means your creatures too. So if you play this card and you somehow get to proc burn on one of your creatures, maybe through playing an expectant chicken and having the egg burn down when you have this talisman active, you essentially give all of your creatures one regen. That has some implications in regen nature. The deck that tries to buff all its cards with, I think it's Aspect of the Hydra or something like that. It's a regen card. They use it as a finisher. But anyways, this could see play in that kind of deck. You do have to get creative though. It's very. I feel like it takes a lot to make it work though. So maybe this isn't good. But the fact that it doesn't lose any durability means there's something there. Relics are just very hard to judge because some effects could seem very weak, but some effects, because they're relics, they can last a very long time and you can get a lot of value out of that. So buyout happened, 9 cents all the way to 30 cents. Oh my god, wow. Crazy, crazy. But hey, if you had like a ton of copies here and you sold here, you might have made a good pretty penny, but I digress. Next up, we have Sage of Renewal. This is your 7 mana 5/5 regen. After a friendly creature enters the board, give it regen +2. After an enemy creature enters the board, give it confusion. Is there a rework going for this card? I don't think so. I think this card is just another regen card that people bought up because they thought it would be a good idea, especially with that talisman buff for nature. Sorry, I just burped into the mic. Excuse me. But I don't know. I 7 mana. You know how I feel about 7 mana cards. It's super slow to play. 5/5 is very underwhelming. The fact that it's regen 2 doesn't really matter. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not feeling it, but maybe there are some implications for this card. I don't know. Like maybe someone's ahead of the curve and we're just all peasants at this point. But I digress. Moving on. Cool. So now we're going on to the war cards. Now, Avatar of War had a very big dip. It went from 536 all the way to 346. This card is a very important card in Control War, for my opinion. It's a finisher. Essentially, it's an 8 mana 8/8 with Leech, which is really good. And it equips a Sentient Flameblade, which is a 5/2 relic, with God Blitz, and heals your God for 5 after every attack. Yeah, that's insane value for an 8 mana card, and I know I give 8 mana cards or really expensive cards a hard time, but this is the card. This is a card in War that I would play in 8 mana. So the fact that it's at a discount right now signals buying opportunity to me. Next up, we have Grand Hall. This is a 4 mana 2/5. We do see a little bit of a dip, but we do see a bounce back happening. I like this card. Frontline, can attack, give each of your creatures Leech and Strength. This card can be good in aggro and good in control, in my opinion, because you're giving your creatures Leech for the control decks, but then you're giving your creatures Strength for the aggro decks. Also, it's a frontline. It has frontline, so if you have a board full of minions, you play this card. Your minions get buffed, and your opponent has to go through the Grand Hall in order to get to your main minions, which is pretty good in my opinion. I think this card needs to see more play in aggro, but we'll see. Haha! I like this card. 9 mana. Anegrios, Daemon Prince, God Blitz. When this creature destroys another creature, obliterate it instead. Roar. Deal 6 damage to each enemy creature. 12/7. Yeah, this is your finisher. This is like Gramash Hellscream from Hearthstone. Yeah, I would play this card, even if it's 9 mana. Even if I have to wait 16 turns to play this card, I think I would play this card if it ever got to that point. God Blitz is a very strong effect, but I mean, its Roar is a very strong effect too, right? It gets to clear the board. If your opponent has a minion with frontline, this basically destroys it unless it's a crazy huge minion. But yeah, I like this card. I definitely think it has a lot of potential. Take them all on. Select a friendly creature. It attacks all enemy creatures on board in random order. There's some synergy with this card with a couple cards in the war set. That mountain serpent thing comes to mind. The one where after every time it takes damage, it doubles its attack. This card can proc that really easily. We did see a buyout. 50 copies were bought at $5.94. Wow, that's amazing. But we do see a recline here, and it's slowly climbing back up to that $5 level. I think it's good. Very situational though, so it's not like a must include into every deck. But I'm sure there's a build around combo that can dedicate this card to a deck, maybe. you know. But is it meta breaking? Absolutely not. Is there a combo based around this card? Probably so. It's up to other people to find out about it though, because I don't think it's interesting enough. Ah, yes, Rolling Thunder got buffed. The good old Rolling Thunder. This card was very OP when it first came out. Now it's just kind of mediocre. And it's still mediocre in my opinion. 7 mana, summon 2/3 Thunder Callers, but instead, if you are Frenzied, summon 3 instead. If you are Frenzied, draw the strongest Viking in your deck and reduce its cost by 1. There's some implication here, maybe getting a Valka or maybe a bigger Viking so that you can discount it. The more expensive the Viking, the better, because for Valka, instead of waiting 16 turns, now you have to just wait 12. And since you're playing this at 7 mana, you can possibly wait even shorter. But yeah, we did see a buyout when the balance patch was announced, or the balance changes were announced, but now we see it coming back down to the regular level. I think 7 mana is just way too slow of a card, to be honest. Enraging Talisman. Okay, so this card's effect also got changed. It changed its text to ability. Give each creature 1 strength and deal 1 damage to them. Give -1 durability to this relic. Okay, this card... I don't know if this card is good. I don't think it is. 4 mana seems... Oh, it changes it to 2 mana. 2 mana and 2 durability. Yeah, it could be good. It's an Auric Rush, but... And it also buffs your minions. I could kind of see this working, but there are just so many powerful relics in the war class already. Like you have Enduring Shield, you have God, or the what's this, the 4 mana 4/2 God Blitz card, and then you even have the 3 mana 3/2 with God Blitz. So I don't understand why you'd want to be running this card. You can just run Auric Rush or something. But I mean, it does kind of have value. I guess you have to test it out to really make sure. I don't know. I just think there are better relics to use than this card. Tartesian Minotaur did see a little bit of a buyout. Give 2 strength to your other Olympians. If you are frenzied, also give them overkill. I think this card is not very good. It's a 5 mana 3/4, which is a very weak body, and it requires you to have Olympians on board already. I don't know. Maybe in an aggro Olympian deck, but there are so many better aggro war decks out there, so I don't agree with this. Okay, so now we're moving on to our neutral cards. First up, we have That Which Aches. This is your 6 mana 3/7. After you play a card, summon a 3/1 Aching Disciple with Roar. Draw a card. Afterlife, shuffle this creature into your deck. This card is good in decks where you're expecting to go into Fatigue. So Board Wipe Death, Control War, maybe Control Mage. Any deck where you're pretty much going to go through your deck the whole game. It's going to be like a 16-turn game, maybe 17-turn game. This card prevents you from going to Fatigue. It gives you an infinite amount of resources if done right. Very good card in my opinion, especially in decks where you want to win the control matchup. So yeah, very good card. Next up, we have Death Mask with a Q. 4 mana 3/5. When a friendly creature dies, burn 1 to a random enemy creature. We did see a buyout here, $14. 11 copies were bought at $14. I think 4 mana 3/5 is very underwhelming for its stat line, and the effect is at best, but you can probably use this in like a burn deck. No. I thought you can use this with a Nature Talisman, and you can. Technically you can, but I don't know. Maybe there's some like hidden combo that we haven't seen with the burn cards yet, but I digress. This card is alright. Not rare. I wouldn't play it though, in my opinion. I just think 4 mana 3/5 is just weak, and the effect doesn't justify that stat line. Cool. Avraxis the Gamekeeper saw spiked. Blessed Roar. Each player gains a random amount of favor, up to 10. Deal 5 damage to the god belonging to the player who gained the most, or each god in case of a tie. This card is interesting. I don't know if I'd really play it, but it's a 2 mana deal 5 best case scenario. It's a 2 mana gain favor worst case scenario. Yeah, I don't know. I think I wouldn't play this in a deck. Next up we have Covetous Cutthroat. Covetous Cutthroat. Talking is hard, y'all. 4 mana, 3/3 with Guild. At the end of your turn, give XX to this creature where X is the durability of your opponent's relic. We did see a spike because of the balance patch. Basically, it goes from a 3/3 to a 4/4. I don't think this card is strong. Yeah. Maybe it's a good tech against Nefer's Kopesh or any of the like champion relics like Lysander's Spear or Palace's Wand, but overall, I don't think this card is very strong. It's very situational. Okay, so we did see a price spike in the Portable Fortress, and I can't wrap my head around it. But maybe it's an arbitrage thing? I don't know. But anyways, frontline can attack at the end of each turn. Portable Fortress's strength set to 0. 2 mana 08 is pretty decent stats, honestly. It's a decent stall card. It's just not going to get you anywhere, but I mean, it's a decent... It's a good stall card if you don't have Pyramid Warden. That's what I take from it. City Planner. 8 mana 8/8, summon 2/06 Ramparts. This is a spike for sure. The Ramparts have Taunt, so you summon this. Your opponent has to go through 12 health before they can deal with this card. The only downside is that it's 8 mana, and I don't know if that effect is worth the 8 mana, but it can serve as some sort of finisher, maybe as a budget finisher. I don't know. It summons structures, so maybe there's some structure synergy there, but honestly, it just seems too slow and too weak. Flanks Lieutenant. This card got buffed, and I'm very excited about this card's buff because instead of it being a 4/1, it gets changed to a 5/3, and 2 armor with 3 health is pretty decent in my opinion. Yeah, 2 armor with 3 health is very good. Guild Enforcer did really well with 2 armor and 4 health, but this card has an extra 2 extra attack because it's a 5/3 now. This card will see play. Armor 2 is a very strong stat line in my opinion. So yeah, I'm looking forward to messing around with this card because there's some implications in certain decks that make this a fun card to play with. Worth a try at least. Atlant Phalanx also received a buyout. I don't know why, but it's a 4 mana 5/4 with frontline. Atlantean. Has some Atlantean synergies, so I mean we could see... I don't know. 4 mana 5 mana 5/4 is very weak in my opinion because of the 4 health. Like this trades so easily with Starshard Bolt, Canopy Barrage. I don't know if I'd want this stat line seems very underwhelming, even with the front line. And finally, we have Highland Defender. We did see a buyout here. 27 copies were bought at 39 cents. 4 mana 4/3 Viking Roar. Summon a 1/1 Huskarl with frontline. I think it's okay. Basically, it's a 4 mana 5/4 with, and the 1/1 defends it with frontline. But 3 health is just such an easy way. It's an easy stat to deal with. It trades with some 1 mana cards. It trades with some 2 mana cards. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that card is strong, and I don't understand the buyout. But who am I to judge people? And with that being said, that is it. So a couple things I want to note too. Obviously, this isn't financial advice. If you want to invest in NFTs and stuff, don't talk to me. Talk to a financial advisor, someone with an actual license. Other than that, the balance changes that we went over today aren't official. So everything that we went over this video, we went over what the dev posted in Discord, and they seem to be going live this week, but as a disclaimer, the balance changes that we went over aren't never finalized until the actual patch notes are released onto like the actual Gods Unchained website. So, with that being said, take all of these with a grain of salt. Everything is subject to change, but I did want to report what the dev posted on Discord. If you haven't joined the Discord on Gods Unchained already, please do so. It's a great way to connect with the game developers and get insight on what they're thinking about the game and what direction they're planning on moving towards. But yeah, other than that, thank y'all for tuning in. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, do all the stuff to support the channel. Yeah. And yeah, hope you enjoyed. Have a great day, everyone, and see y'all next time. Peace.